Welcome back to part 2 where we're continuing this build. So the next thing we're going to do is put the IC on. So we have a IC socket holder here and then the IC itself here. So we've got my little leg straightener here, so let's just check to make sure that the legs are straight first. Put that on there. And just to make sure that they're all in line as well, which they are. IC goes in next. Again, just double checking to make sure the legs are straight. Yep, they look okay. So we'll just put the IC to one side. And then we'll put the IC holder on first. So what we have to be careful of here is that on the circuit board there's a little cutout on the pattern there, and on the IC holder as well as the IC there's a matching little cutout on the end, so it have to be that way around. And on the IC, which is there, has a little cutout on top of the plastic here, so that's make sure that again that goes up that way around as well. So let's see if we can get the holder in first. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over just to make sure that all the pins are through, which they are. Check them with your fingers if you can't quite see, but that's all the way through. So what I'm going to do now is just going to plop a bit of solder just on the end. So that's the two M1s done. Just going to make sure that the IC holder is just flat to the board, which it is. If it's not, you can just hold it with your finger to the side, just warm up the solder and just give it a gentle push, but mine's okay, so we can solder all the rest of the legs up now without any problems. There we go, and then again just give it a physical look just to make sure they've all soldered correctly, which they looks like they have. So that's that done, good. So on this side we've still got the connections here to do, and then the AC goes in just down there on the circuit board, so we'll come back to that later on. So I'm going to pause the video now while I turn the board around and we'll do the connections here. So we've got the board turned around now. This is the connection that we've got to do. If you look at this one, it's got no access this side, and it's got the wires, the connections where the wires go in this side. Screws are on the top, so we have to make sure that when we solder it on the board, this side's to the board and that is to the outside world, so we can get the wires on. And there's a 3 and there's a 2. So on the circuit board we can go see that the 3 is at the top, so let's get that one in. Again, it's a bit tight because it's right up against that IC. Do you know, I think it's going to be better if we put the IC in now while we've got the space. So let's pop that in now. So this is the IC. Again, don't forget about the cutout to go on. So let's get that on board now while we've got a bit of room. Sorry, all you can see is my hand. Okay, so that's got the IC in. Just make sure that you've got your finger underneath the board thumb on top and just give it a firm push in there to make sure that all the legs are in place. None of the legs have actually popped out the sides, which they haven't, so that's good. Right, let's see if we can get this connection in now then. Again, apologies, you're only seeing the back of my hand. Let's see if I can move it around a bit. So that's in, although it's a bit on the tight side. Yep, that's in. So we can solder that up. Okay, and we'll get the double one in as well. Again, making sure that the connections are on the outside. Don't make these things easy. I don't think those holes are actually big enough. Right, hang on a minute. Well, that was a bit of a fight, but as you can see, I finally got it in. What I had to do really is just to clean out the holes because they were so tight that it was quite difficult. I think the problem is that the holes are round and the pegs are actually sort of rectangular, so that's probably why it was difficult. I've soldered to one side at the moment just to make sure that it's flat against the board, which it is. So let's see if we can get the other leg soldered up now. Right, let's got that done. Just going to put a little bit more on this side. Yeah, that looks better. Right, okay, so I think that is just about all the components done. We'll take that off later on. The display is on. The AC's got to go onto there yet, so let's have a quick look at that. Right. So this is the AC transformer that we've got to do. Now this is the one that goes to the circuit board. It comes with this little JST connection on it, but there's no JST pins in the kit. So what I might do is cut this off and solder it direct to the board. And this side is the AC that goes to the mains. It's got these two circular clips on them at the moment. Now that's supposed to connect to this flimsy wire here, which has got the Euro plug on it, which I'm not going to use. Get rid of that. So what I might do though is chop these off and connect them to a proper British specification wire. So let's have a quick look at doing that now. Right, so in the other bag that came with the kit, this bag here, we have the case that is currently covered in this protective plastic. So we'll just put that to one side for the time being, because the one I'm interested in is this one that I've already peeled, and this is the base. I know it's the base because we've got, it's difficult to see on the camera, we've got 4 holes around the edges and 2 holes there which will hold the transformer. So the transformer will go something like that and the circuit board will go just there next to it. So before we do that, these are all the nuts and bolts and screws and things. what we've got to do is have a think about where the cable's got to go. So with it sitting roughly about there, let's have a quick look. So the transformer's about there. The cable's got to go to down here, so we don't need a long cable, so I like to measure it out and then just give it a little bit extra, because it's always easier to take some off rather than add some on. So I reckon we can chop it about there. So these two cables need to be soldered into there, which will come out just there. Now, although on the circuit board we have a square and a round just here, which normally indicates plus and minus, because this is AC, it doesn't really matter. So let's get that soldered up. Right, so just put the soldering iron on, and I've just stripped the end of the cables here, and all I've done is just simply twisted the cables together so they're all together. Make sure we don't have any stray strands or anything. So them two are ready to go in. So it's going to go in the circuit board just down here. It's marked AC on the board itself. So let's get one of those in. Okay, so that's that one done. And get the one on the other side. Again, twist it around to make sure there's no fray cables. I'm just going to chop off any excess. There we go. So that's got the two AC cables, and I'm just going to double check underneath the magnifying glass just to make sure there's no fray cables anywhere. That looks okay. So I'm tempted actually to try this powered up before I actually put it in the case. But before I do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mount it on here. So if we mount it on this, it's not going to move around as much. So let's have a look at doing that now. So we'll pick up one of our screws. Right, what I can do now is put the extra nut on them. So that acts as a spacer, and then we can put it on the perspex. There we go. Right, that's got that job done, so let's see if we can get this transformer on. Well, that's good of them, isn't it? Look at that. Head goes straight through with that. So how are you supposed to tighten that up? Just one moment, please. Right, I've just grabbed my little toolkit I've got here, and I've just taken out a couple of washers, which I'm going to put on the screw heads like that. The only problem with this is the screw still long enough to go through the perspex? Let's have a look. Yes, only just, but there it is. Right, okay, so that's now got that on. So what I'm still tempted to do is test this before I build the rest of the case around it. The only other thing I've got to try and remember is, let's have a look, so that's the front panel, so when that goes on, that goes through there. There's a little hole there that lines up with a little pin just there. So let's get that on and get that one on. Now then, let's have a look at this. What else we got here? Now, so that'd be the side panel for there, so you can access it, access those connections through there. That looks like that's just straightforward back panel, so that's that one there. So this must be the other side panel, which goes on there, like that. And there's a hole through here that the mains cable goes. So let's find a spare mains cable that we can adapt. Right, I have a cable now. This is from an old lamp. It's got a UK plug on it, and the wire itself is a lot thicker than the other wire. The other wire is just here with a Euro plug on it, and it just feels so soft and yucky. Anyway, that's going to go in the bin. Thank you. Right, so we'll stick to this one. So we need to put it through the hole here first and feed it through. So let's just take off this protective sleeve, because what we don't want to do is to get it all in place and then have difficulty taking it off. Right, okay, so the bigger holes are going to go to the bottom, they're going to match in there, so let's push that through, so it should go that way around, so push that through there. Okay, leave that out of the way for the time being. Let's just get rid of these out of the way. Okay, so we'll just strip this wire. Okay, so we'll cut this wire down a bit because we don't want a ton of wire like I left on here. So let's cut it off about there. Right, so before we put that on, what we're going to do afterwards is put a bit of heat shrink on it to protect the wire. So this is a larger one, a larger diameter, which will go over both the cables once they've been soldered up and joined. So let's move that again out of the way. and this one will go on the individual wires once they've been done. So we'll chop that in half. Always remember to put these on before you solder everything up, otherwise you've got to unsolder it all again, as I've done many a times. Right, so let's join these wires up. So one done. So we get a little bit more wire out of that. That's better. Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll put our heat shrink over it like that. And we'll just heat it up, and that will nicely melt over that. Try not to burn my fingers at the same time. Okay, we'll just leave that to cool down for a second. Right, so they're nice and cool now. So I'll bring our other heat shrink back. And we shall, there we go, do the same with that. There, that's just made it nice and secure and safe. So we've got the inner heat shrink covering the wires and the outer heat shrink protecting the whole lot. Good. So I think what we'll do now is a bit of a test before we put all the cover on it to make sure it actually works. I'm going to turn this all the way off. We need to make sure that we've got a tester on this, so let's get a tester. So I've got it set for 20 volts DC. Hope you can see that all right. And what we need to do is be very careful, because don't forget this is 240 volt live, and we'll need to test the points down here for the DC voltage. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't see the magic smoke, There won't be a big bang. Let's see if it works. Okay, so that's good. We've got 1.2 showing on there at the moment, so that's a good start. And we've got 1.2 showing on the multimeter as well. Just do that again for you. 1.2. So if I hold those with one hand, I turn it up. Yep, it's looking good. Let's just turn the leads around. I've got them the wrong way around. That's better. So on the bit difficult to hold them in place. So on the display I've got 1.72 and on the digital meter I've got 176. It's not far off. And the LEDs are coming on as well, so that's 4.88 and I've got 4.90. Go up to 11. 11.6, so 12 volts is the maximum we're going to get out of this. So I've got 11.6 on the display on the board and 11.6 on the multimeter, so that's good. All the way back down to 1.2. Excellent. That means it's working. And no magic smoke. So next thing we need to do is switch it off and then we can build up the case. There we go. Right, I just left it alone a couple of minutes just for any capacitors or anything just to discharge. So what we need to do first of all is just take the cover off the buzzer, which I never had buzz, which is good. And let's try and get this back over here now. Actually no, because that's actually going to stay inside, so that's a good point. So we don't need to take that off. Take that through there because that needs to stay in. So that goes like that. If I remember correctly, some of these screws are really awkward to get on. So let's make sure that all the wires with the red cable get into track as we build the case up. That'll be okay. That's flattened out, so let's get this side on. Next. Got a hole inside for the wires to go through there. And that will fit on like that. So let's see if we get this wire. Right, just going to do them. We'll do the foot panel next. Right, so that hole there, that rotating hole, is going to go that side. So it's screwing otherwise we get in the way, isn't it? That's my fault for not putting it down side.
Well, that's very interesting because this is 2 rows underneath right in the top. I can't get me. Right, that's great in the spot. I'm not particularly happy with it at the moment. That rotating pin isn't rotating in the hole. But let's carry on. Right, okay, so I've got those in. Bit tough and pieces, but finally got them in. Let's get the back sides on. Right, so let's put the back on. So you've got 2 big screws on the side. Now, problems with this plastic is the hole is actually through the end of the plastic. Right. So the hole is right on the edge there, so it's not quite been drilled right. Right, okay, so that's what I'll do to the top.
Right, last one is the top, and the top's got a hole in it, so I'll explain what that's for in a second. Right, okay, so this is going to go on like that. And the hole here is so you can get your screwdriver through for the test leads, which go here. And that hole there is to make micro adjustments to that, which we haven't done yet, so we'll have a look at that later on. So let's get this top on, and then we can test it again to make sure that everything's working. Right, I've just left that quite loose at the moment. I want to get the back one on first, and then we'll tie them down together. Okay, so they're on just loosely at the moment, so I'm just going to make sure that everything lines up. Like that. Now we can tighten these up. Right, okay, so a couple of things left to do. First of all, we have our knob to go on the front, so I'm going to make sure that's turned all the way to the left. There we go, let's got that on. Might get some numbers put around there later on. That doesn't quite look right. Why doesn't that look right? Okay, I'll look at that later. So that's the one. Test leads is what I also need to do. So this is the wire I'm going to use for the test leads. The wire that came again with the kit is this wire here. Nice wire, but again it just seems so thin and not very good at all. So our two crook clips, and then we're going to use this wire here, which I think is far better quality. So I'm not going to use a whole lot. I'm just going to chop it down, so I'm going to use about that much. And it's also red and black, so it's easier to see. Just switch on the soldering iron. And we're going to solder that onto there, to hold that onto there. Right, that's got that in there. And what I'll also do while I'm here, just nip that up. There we go, so that's got that one done. Nicely soldered in place. Okay, that's that one done. So now we do the red one, which would be the plus. Okay, so that's the ends of the test leads done, and the other end, what we'll do, well, let's get rid of those ends for starters. Start fresh. And we'll put a blob of solder on those as well. And that's just purely to just stop the wires from fraying. So the one at the farthest end is the plus. So we can put a screwdriver in the end. Undo that. Slide our cable in. Try not to drop the screwdriver. And there we go. So let's just double check everything. Let's get our solder out of the way. Test leads okay, and bring our tester back in. Right, hopefully you can see the display. It says 1.2 on the board. It says 1.25 or 24 on there, which is good. Let me turn that up. It's sensitive, but there you go. 2 volts, 2.04, 2.09, it's not bad. .2, 10.2 on the multimeter as well. It's quite good, that. So I think we can quite easily say that that's a working kit, and I'll be able to use that when doing some testing and building other kits on the bench. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.